Have you ever wondered why a man, once so present, can suddenly disappear without a trace, leaving only the echo of his absence behind? His silence becomes a haunting presence, louder than any confession, more cutting than any explanation. To the untrained eye, it looks like detachment, perhaps even strength. But under the surface, beneath the carefully constructed image of composure, there is a far more fragile truth. This is not a story of indifference. It is the quiet theater of a wounded ego dressed in shadows, performing for an audience he will never invite you to see. Carl Jung would tell you that in moments like these, you are not seeing the man, you are seeing his shadow. The part of him that he denies, the part that fears exposure. The vanishing act is not born from clarity, but from the terror of being truly known. For in the presence of a woman whose energy unsettles him, who stirs the waters of his unconscious, he feels the walls of his identity begin to shake. And rather than face the tremor, he runs into the illusion of distance. You might believe his silence is about you. The unanswered calls, the unread messages, the absence of explanation. But silence, in the male psyche, often has little to do with the woman and everything to do with the confrontation he avoids within himself. Jung called this confrontation individuation, the slow, often painful process of meeting one's own truth. And most men, when faced with it unexpectedly, would rather escape than endure the mirror you hold up. Imagine the nights that follow his departure. You replay his last words, his last glance, as though they might contain a hidden code. But what you are really searching for is not a reason, it is closure. And closure from a man who leaves without a word is like trying to catch fog in your hands. It is not there to be given. His withdrawal is not an ending you can resolve. It is a performance he stages to convince himself he is in control. In the feminine unconscious, there is a dangerous temptation to chase the unanswered question, to make sense of the missing piece. But the woman who understands her power knows that the pursuit of a vanishing man is an invitation to lose herself. Jung would say that the anima, the feminine within, must resist being drawn into the void he creates, for that void is not a space for connection, but a labyrinth built from his fear. Men vanish for many reasons, but when it is a woman's strength, self-possession, and quiet mystery that precedes their disappearance, the truth is far sharper. He is not avoiding her flaws. He is avoiding her depth. Depth demands reflection, and reflection threatens the carefully guarded illusions upon which his ego rests. In his silence, he can preserve the image he wishes to keep, untarnished, untouched, unchallenged. To stay would be to risk the unraveling of his carefully woven self. So he disappears, not into nothingness, but into the safety of his own constructed reality. He tells himself stories about why he left. Perhaps she was too much, too intense, too demanding, because these narratives allow him to remain the hero in his own mind. What he will not admit is that her presence stirred the parts of himself he has buried. Her gaze touched the boy still seeking approval, the man still afraid to fail, the soul still longing for unconditional love, yet terrified to receive it. And here is where your power lies. To see his absence for what it is, a confession without words. The man who leaves without explanation has spoken volumes. His silence says, I cannot stand in the light you shine on me. His distance says, I fear the parts of myself you awaken. His vanishing says, I am not ready to meet the man I am when I am with you. If you understand this, you will not wait for him to return with answers. You will not linger at the edge of his absence, hoping his shadow will transform into something whole. Instead, you will step back into yourself, into the life that was never paused for his approval. You will see that his vanishing was never your loss. It was his refusal to step into the alchemy your presence offered. And that refusal, brothered by fear, is a burden you were never meant to carry. Because the truth his ego will never admit is that leaving you was not a liberation. It was a retreat. And the man who retreats from the depths of a woman's energy does not escape her. He escapes himself. His absence becomes a story you carry, but it is not yours to finish. Days turn into weeks, and still there is no message, no call, no explanation. Only the quiet echo of something that once moved with fire. In that silence, you begin to see the pattern. A man who disappears this way does not vanish into chaos. He retreats into the familiar corridors of his own mind, into the safe halls of detachment where no one can touch the raw edges of his soul. Carl Jung would say that his vanishing is the manifestation of the shadow's fear of integration. To face you, truly face you, would mean confronting not only the image he has built, but the wounds buried beneath it. Every man carries a persona, a carefully tailored mask shown to the world. When a woman's presence pierces through that mask, revealing the unhealed fractures beneath, the choice becomes stark: to stand in the uncomfortable light of truth or to flee back into the comfort of self-deception. Most will flee. To the outside world, he will appear composed, perhaps even indifferent. But that performance hides the truth. His disappearance is not a mark of emotional strength, but of fragility. You were not simply a person in his life. You were a mirror, and mirrors are dangerous for those who cannot bear the sight of their own reflection. In your presence, he saw the versions of himself he could have been, the man he wanted to be, and the one he feared becoming. And instead of standing in that confrontation, he chose distance, thinking that by leaving you, he could silence the questions you awakened in him. But the psyche does not forget. Jung teaches us that what we repress in the unconscious will return, often with greater force. In time, your absence will haunt him, as your subscription and comment aren't just numbers. They're signals that decide what video comes next. Share your thoughts or ideas in the comments. They often become the foundation for new stories. Interestingly, over 90% of viewers watch my videos without subscribing. That's okay. It means the content pulls you in. But subscribing helps you stay updated with the next parts. Hit subscribe, and let's create the next video together. As much as his absence haunts you now, he will remember not your flaws, but the way you challenged the boundaries of his self-image, the way your silence after his departure mirrored his own. Yet yours was a silence born from dignity, not avoidance. Here is where many women falter. They confuse his withdrawal with a judgment of their worth. But his retreat is not a verdict against you. It is evidence of the battle within him. If you chase a man in this state, you do not rescue him from his shadow. You step into it with him, letting his fears dictate the rhythm of your own life. That is not love. That is self-abandonment dressed in the costume of loyalty. Instead, the path of the empowered feminine is one of stillness, not pursuit. Stillness is not passivity. It is the deliberate choice to remain centered in your own energy, to let the storm pass without stepping into it. This is the space where your mystery grows, where your presence deepens, where your light is no longer dimmed by the shadows of someone else's fear. Understand this: when a man vanishes without a word, he believes he has preserved control. But true control is not the ability to leave. It is the ability to stay when staying demands vulnerability. By walking away without confrontation, he has chosen comfort over growth, familiarity over transformation. And while he may never admit this, not to you, not even to himself, the truth will remain, like a thread woven into the fabric of his memory, tightening each time he thinks of you. There is a quiet kind of power in letting someone go without trying to pull them back. This power is not about pride or revenge. It is about alignment. You do not align yourself with a disappearing man. You align yourself with your own clarity, with the truth that love does not flourish in the absence of courage. And when you step fully into that clarity, you will see that his silence has done you a strange kind of favor. It has shown you who he truly is before you invested the fullness of yourself in an illusion. Men like this will return, not always in presence, but in thought. They will remember the way your energy unsettled them, the way you moved with a quiet confidence they could not quite understand. But by then, you will have changed. You will no longer be waiting at the place where he left you. You will be somewhere else entirely, in a space he cannot reach, because it exists beyond the grasp of anyone who chooses disappearance over connection. Time has a way of revealing truths that words often conceal. As the seasons shift, so too does the clarity within you. The ache he left behind begins to fade, not because his absence hurts less, but because you have learned to see it for what it truly was: a mirror reflecting his inability to face himself. Jung would remind us that the shadow thrives in avoidance, that the more one runs from their own depths, the stronger the grip of the unconscious becomes. His vanishing, then, is not freedom. It is a sentence to live under the quiet weight of unresolved truths. In the stillness that follows his departure, you begin to sense the undercurrent of a larger lesson. You recall the way he once looked at you, not with the simplicity of affection, but with the conflicted intensity of someone both drawn to and terrified of what they saw. It was never just about attraction, it was recognition. Recognition of the fact that you were not merely another chapter in his life, but a turning point. one that demanded he confront the contradictions between the man he pretended to be and the man he feared he truly was. When a man like this disappears, he does so under the illusion that distance will protect him. But the psyche is a restless keeper of secrets. His withdrawal may have spared him from immediate discomfort, but it cannot shield him from the inevitable reckoning that comes when the unconscious refuses to be silenced. Jung spoke of individuation as the process of becoming whole, yet wholeness requires the courage to face the disowned parts of the self. Without that courage, the self remains fractured, and every attempt to escape only deepens the split. Your role in this is not to bridge that gap for him. You cannot walk another's path of self-discovery, nor can you drag them into the light if they are not ready to see. The more you try, the further they will retreat, clinging to the safety of their shadows. And so the wisest choice, the only choice, is to release him into the very silence he created, allowing the emptiness to do the work that your presence could not. But releasing is not the same as forgetting. There will be moments when his absence drifts into your thoughts, uninvited. There will be nights when you catch yourself remembering the sound of his voice or the way his eyes would linger for a fraction too long. These memories are not chains unless you let them be. Instead, they can become markers, reminders of how far you have traveled from the place where you once stood, waiting for answers that were never coming. Over time, you notice a shift. The energy you once poured into deciphering his silence begins to flow elsewhere, into your work, your passions, your relationships with those who meet you fully. You learn to sit comfortably in your own company, to let your solitude be a place of strength rather than a wound to be healed. And in that space, something extraordinary happens. You stop measuring your worth by the presence or absence of another. If he crosses your mind now, it is with a kind of detached curiosity, as if you are observing a character in a story you once knew well but no longer feel bound to. You can see his patterns with clarity, the way he built walls and called them boundaries, the way he wore detachment like armor, believing it made him untouchable. And you understand, perhaps more deeply than before, that his leaving was never truly about you. It was about the weight he could not bear to carry, the truths he could not bear to face. The beauty of this realization is that it returns you to yourself. No longer are you the woman waiting at the edge of someone else's fear. You are the woman who walks forward, even when the road is quiet, even when the air is heavy with unanswered questions. You move not because you seek resolution, but because your life is too expansive to be contained within the absence of one man. And perhaps this is the quiet power that unsettles men like him the most. Not the intensity of your presence, but the way you thrive without their return. For nothing challenges the ego quite like realizing that the world goes on without it, that the woman it left behind has built a life so rich, so full, that she no longer remembers the sound of his retreating footsteps. Eventually, the silence between you and him becomes something else entirely, not an open wound, but a sealed chapter. The once sharp edges of his absence smooth into distant outlines, and you begin to see the entire picture for what it is, an archetypal dance between presence and withdrawal, light and shadow, the yearning for connection and the fear of surrender. Jung would say that every human relationship is a meeting of two unconscious worlds, and when those worlds collide, the cracks in each psyche are illuminated. Some step forward into that light, others retreat. He retreated. You realize now that his disappearance was never random. It was a precise act of self-preservation, orchestrated by the most fragile parts of his identity. Beneath the surface, there is an old wound, perhaps born in childhood, perhaps shaped by betrayal, that told him intimacy was dangerous, that to be fully seen was to risk being undone. When you drew close enough to touch that wound, his shadow reacted instinctively. Pull away, vanish, disappear before the truth takes shape. In his absence, you learn something men like him may never understand. That absence can be as revealing as presence. His silence spoke not of mystery, but of avoidance. His distance was not a mark of strength, but an admission of weakness dressed in the garments of stoicism. And as weeks became months, the once haunting question of why did he leave transformed into the far more powerful recognition of why would I want someone who could. There is a certain liberation in seeing that you do not need to reopen the door he closed. Jung's wisdom teaches that when one steps away from what refuses to meet them, space is created for what will. That space, at first, feels hollow, but slowly, it becomes sacred ground. You fill it with the steady rhythm of your own breath, the texture of your own thoughts, the beauty of moments that ask for nothing but your full presence. And here lies the paradox. The more you anchor into yourself, the more you step into a frequency he will feel, even from afar. He may not understand it consciously, but there will be a subtle shift in his awareness. A realization that the woman he left is no longer standing where he abandoned her. She has grown beyond the reach of his return. This is not revenge. It is the natural consequence of self-restoration. Men like him often circle back, drawn not by love, but by the unresolved pull of their own ego. If he reappears, it will likely be when his life feels unsteady, when the other illusions he clings to have begun to crack. He may speak of missing you, of thinking about you, of wondering how you've been. But you will know, with a calm certainty that did not exist before, that what he misses is not you as you are now, but you as you were when you still fit within his comfort zone. That version of you no longer exists. In this clarity, there is no need for harshness or bitterness. Detachment is not cruelty, it is freedom. You can listen without being pulled back in, speak without offering a thread for him to follow. You are no longer the mirror he feared, but a closed door he cannot enter. And this, perhaps, is the most dangerous truth for his ego, that the woman who once unsettled him now walks beyond his shadow entirely. As you continue forward, you notice how different your energy feels. There is no urgency to be understood, no hunger for answers that may never come. Instead, there is an ease, a quiet knowing that the right connections do not require you to shrink, to dim, or to wait at the edge of someone else's readiness. You understand now that love without courage is only an echo, and echoes cannot hold you. In the end, his disappearance becomes a gift disguised as loss. It stripped away illusions, revealed truths, and returned you to yourself in ways his presence never could. You are not defined by the men who vanish. You are defined by the woman who remains. And that woman, the one who stands in her own light without flinching, is the truest embodiment of strength. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.